Hey there everybody, and welcome back to Cape Quest. So for this session we were actually down a person, so Alex and I decided to use the opportunity to just get some grinding out of the way. We needed to get our woodcutting and our fire making up a certain level, and that doesn't make for the most interesting YouTube content, so instead I figured what we would do today is I'd just go over why I keep coming back to RuneScape. If you've watched much of the series, you can obviously tell that I have a long history of the game. I honestly spent way too much time thinking through things and planning things out, and I figured it might be interesting to talk about some of that. Of course, the best place to start with that kind of thing is usually the beginning. So, I first picked up RuneScape back in about 2005. One of my friends in middle school got into the game himself, and had a pretty easy sell for me, because I'd been looking for some kind of online game to play at the time. I'd actually tried a couple others. I remember getting into a text-based MMO called The Hidden World, and, well, I'd never really got too far in that one, because it was a little too stubborn or clueless to look up a guide, and, I mean, it was way back then. I don't know if I would have been able to find anything. I also tried getting to what I'm pretty sure was some sort of Final Fantasy role-playing server that I didn't realize wasn't an MMO at the time. But looking back, I'm pretty sure that was just an RP server, so that really wouldn't have been what I was looking for either. Needless to say, though, when I played RuneScape, I was hooked pretty quickly, even though I, once again, had no clue what I was doing. I played pretty consistently after school. My brother got into it at the time, and that was what we did in our free time for quite a while, was to just play some RuneScape. It was even to the point where, on a trip to Hawaii for a family vacation, we would sneak down to the lobby of the resort we were staying at every night because they had computers with free internet access. And yeah, you better believe it, we were sitting there playing RuneScape for hours on end after we were done with our activities for the day. I'm pretty sure we drove some people crazy. Not like we were loud and rambunctious, but we did keep those things tied up pretty thoroughly. I would fall out of playing RuneScape somewhere around the middle of my freshman year of high school. It was started to see as kind of a thing for kids at the time, and I was a dumb teenager, so I didn't want to be associated with that. That is until about the summer of my junior year, where, on a whim, I decided, yeah, you know what, let's give it a try, let's see what's changed. And yeah, played it very, very consistently for a few months, to the point where I didn't want to see it or touch it again by the time I was done. And it kind of sat on a shelf for a while after that. Wouldn't be until after I had gotten out of college that I would come back and once again decide to pick it up and give it a try. After college was a weird time for me, like I'm sure it was for just about anybody who goes through that. I didn't really have any idea what I was doing, or any idea what to do next, so having something while I was trying to get that all figured out that I could just kind of focus on and, make some progress in, it honestly really helped me get kind of back on my feet, so to speak. I also tried out World of Warcraft around this time, but honestly, that never really clicked for me. In fact, that kind of tab-targeting action bar type MMO wouldn't click for me until years later when I tried Final Fantasy XIV. Eventually, though, I would kind of fall off again. My brother and I have this nasty tendency most of the time where we will play the game constantly for 3 months and then just get super tired of playing it and drop it until several years later when we decide to come back. So before Cape Quest, the most recent time that we had picked it up, and our most recent experience with RuneScape 3, was when the lockdown first started. I was working from home at the time, and I hadn't yet started my YouTube channel. The work that I was doing was the kind of thing where you'd have a few hours where you were very busy, and then the middle of the day would be fairly empty, so I was looking for something to kind of fill that gap while I waited for more work to come in. And RuneScape really seemed to fit the bill. It's the kind of game you can really take at a very relaxed pace if you're not trying to, power level through to something. But we played that until, probably actually about the time that I started my YouTube channel, and again, we'd played it for a few months straight, had gotten our characters all the way up into, I want to say, the 80s. Like, we'd just done Desert Treasure, and we were really strong and just kind of tired. So, yeah, we put it down for a couple years until I ran across the idea of doing a 1-year challenge. The idea was, or at least as far as I've seen, originally posted by Doug, and it seemed really interesting, and RuneScape seemed to be a nice fit. So, yeah, kind of know the rest of the story from there, because we've been doing Cape Quest for about 6-7 months now. It's honestly crazy to think that it's been that long. Nostalgia isn't the only thing that keeps me coming back, because honestly, RuneScape is a pretty great game in its own right, like even aside from my long history with it. The parts of the gameplay that have always really been the things that clicked with me are things like the skill system. The fact that you have over 20 skills in both versions of the game that not only represent, the idea of, like, every time you use this, it gets a little bit better, and the more you use it, the cooler stuff you can do, but they also weave them together in really interesting ways. You train your farming, and you can start growing trees to cut down, or you can start growing herbs to help with your herb lore. Herb lore itself helps with combat and a bunch of other skills. It's just really cool stuff that's always fascinated me, and I'm genuinely surprised that there aren't other games that have similar ideas. Every time I see something on Steam described as, this is single-player RuneScape, it has, without fail, never actually lived up to the parts of RuneScape that I really like. A lot of that, I think, comes down to the level of care that they use when they craft their skills. We've been seeing a lot of this with the sailing that they're working on. They go in trying to think of what's the way to make it not only stand alone as a fun experience, but how it also can mix with the other skills to allow the player to do really cool things that they're going to enjoy. It's something I think both versions of the game do very well, divination notwithstanding. The quest system as well is something I've always loved. In most MMOs, we all know the joke, every quest is go out here and kill an increasing number of enemies that are ideally scaled for your power level at the time. And, even Final Fantasy XIV to an extent can be guilty of this. RuneScape, though, the quests can be as simple as, helping the chef prepare a cake for the Duke's birthday, all the way up to stopping a gnome invasion of the known world, or an extended Scream parody. We haven't even seen the craziest stuff yet, like the 3D Zelda Light puzzle that still lives in my nightmares to this very day. The quest rewards themselves, I think, are also a big part of that, because the skills that you use in the quest are usually the ones that you're getting experience for as a reward, so it's not just generic combat experience or character level experience, If you pick a lock during a quest, there's a good chance you're going to get thieving experience at the end. Or if you had to grow something, you might get farming experience. So it really feels like the quests mean something. And that's not even counting the minigames that are there. I've sunk hours over the years into pest control and stealing creation and RuneSpan and RuneScape 3. Every single one of those is just a really fun side activity that, when I just don't feel like doing anything else in the game, I can just pop in and have some fun with. We haven't really gotten the chance to show any of those off as part of the Cape Quest, but Guardians of the Rift is coming, and I already know I'm going to be spending a lot of time in that one. So maybe expect another one of these in the future. The gameplay alone isn't the only thing that keeps me coming back, though. The writing itself is pretty fantastic. There's so much wit and humor baked into the dialogue, so many silly one-liners and dumb jokes and great visual gags, and of course the main character themselves is just one of my favorites. They are so dumb, but so competent, and it's just absolutely endearing to watch sometimes as they bumble their way through whatever problem they're trying to solve. But even, on a more serious note, there are so many mysteries baked into the world of RuneScape. It's a world with tons of lore and history behind it, so it feels like there's always something new to discover whenever you go to a new area. Even one of the earliest quests starts getting into that with rune mysteries. The entire quest is about uncovering some lost knowledge about how to find the place where you can mine rune essence to craft more runes. And none of that's even touching on the Desert Pantheon or the Majorat or even, something like Korend and hopefully soon Varlamore. Like, it just feels like a world that has been around for thousands of years and has so much history to it. Granted, at times that history is a little janky and cartoony, but it's fascinating nonetheless. And as so many people are quick to point out, there's a very peculiar quirk to the writing that really helps set it apart and keep it in your mind. You're very rarely dealing with some sort of world-ending threat. I mean, the closest we've gotten in the stuff that we've showed off so far is maybe Glau's invasion of the human kingdoms, or Agrath Nar, given that he was a powerful demon. Like, we're how many hours into the game, and really there's not a main story or a big bad guy, but there have been tons of little local stories. We've been dealing with local problems. It really helps to give the areas their own character. The regions of the world are almost as much a character as any of the actual people. If I'm doing a quest in Canifis, I know that it's going to be something gothic horror or undead related. If I go to Relica, I know I'm going to be dealing with a very traditional society of legally not Vikings. Though maybe Relica's a little closer to Anglo-Saxon culture. I know the gnome problems are going to be something bizarre, but a problem that does definitely need to be solved, because it usually impacts a lot more than just them. And I love that no matter where you go in this game, you really do get a sense of the kind of problems that you're going to be dealing with. And lastly, as you may have noticed from my own personal history with the game, RuneScape's somewhere I tend to come back to when things get tough. Up until starting Cape Quest, RuneScape was always the thing that I went to when I was feeling directionless and just needed to get something done, needed to feel like I'd accomplished something. And that's a sentiment I've heard from a lot of people about a lot of different MMOs or video games or what have you. And I'm curious what's served that same role for you. If there's been something, a game, a book, a movie, whatever it might be, let me know in the comments. I'm curious to hear what your answers are. And also, thank you so much for watching and listening. We are almost halfway through the goal I set for myself. Episode 26 is right around the corner. And it's crazy to think that it's been going on this long, but also, Cape Quest isn't going to be going anywhere anytime soon. There is plenty of RuneScape left for us to experience. So, I just want to say thank you again so much for your time through all these videos. As always, you can catch us live on my Twitch channel every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and of course, you can subscribe to the channel if you want to catch them here on YouTube whenever they go live. Tune in next time where we get tangled up in some fairy nonsense that I'm sure will have a simple solution. And once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will catch you next time.